Today we are going to investigate the topic of applying something called the product rule. And as you might recall from previous lessons, product is the word for the answer to a multiplication problem. So that means that we're going to be multiplying something today. And specifically, we're going to be multiplying expressions that involve exponents. So I'm going to give you an example. So in this example, what this is saying, like if I were going to put what this is saying in words. So I've got x to the second power. And remember from our previous lesson that whenever you have an exponent, remember this little guy right here is an exponent, it's telling you how many times you multiply the base, and in this case the base is that big guy right there. So it's telling you how many times you multiply the base by itself. So this means this is something we call expanded form, where we take this and kind of just write it into exactly the same thing. It's just a little bit bigger version. You don't have to write this or anything. I just want to show you. It means you're technically doing x times x, right? Because this is the number that you're multiplying by itself. And it tells you that you're going to multiply it by itself 1, 2 times, right? And then if we look over here, x to the fourth, the same idea. The expanded version, it would just be saying that we're multiplying x by itself into, we're multiplying it by itself 4 times. But then look at what we have here in between these two x values, these two powers. We also have our little dot, which we know that dot means multiply, right? The dot is another way to represent multiplication. So what this is really telling us to do, the big idea of what this is telling us to do is take two smaller multiplication problems, because that's technically what this is, right? Because you're multiplying x by itself twice, and then here you're multiplying x to the fourth twice. So the big idea is that you're taking two smaller multiplication problems. So in this case, again, those two smaller multiplication problems are going to be that guy and then that guy. But then we're taking those two multiplication problems, and then we're going to take those two smaller ones and turn it into one big multiplication problem by joining them together with that multiplication symbol in between. So here's an illustration of what I mean. So we've got that original x to the second power, and then we have our x to the fourth power, and we're combining them by just sticking another multiplication problem in between. So how many x's total are we multiplying together? Well, we're multiplying those two, and we're multiplying those 4. So we're multiplying a total of 6 x's together. So that means it's going to be x times x times x times x times x times x. And the shorter way to write it is going to be x to the 6th power. So you're just taking two smaller problems, two smaller multiplication problems, and you're combining them into one big multiplication problem. So we all like a good shortcut, right? I know good and well you guys don't want to sit here and expand all of this and write it big. So what's the shortcut? Well, the shortcut is the rule. And so the rule, which I should highlight here, this rule only works when the bases are the same. So in this example that we did right here, right, where both of the bases are x's, so as long as the bases are the same, you can use this shortcut. Step 1, Sorry, I know that was kind of an ugly one. The base stays the same. So the x stays put. And I'm going to put this actually in a different color. Step 2, simply add the exponents. So you had an x to the second and an x to the fourth. So you're going to add those together to see how many x's you're really at multiplying. So that is going to be x to the 6th power. Okay, so you go ahead and try this one. What would be great is just pause the video for a minute, try to think of what you think the answer is, and then restart the video to check. I'm going to assume you've already done that, and so we'll go ahead here. So in this case, we are going to be able to use the shortcut because we have the same base. The big variable is a g. And then step 2, we're going to add the exponents together because here we're multiplying 8 g's. Here we're multiplying 4 more g's. So if we combine those g's by putting them together with that multiplication symbol, that's going to be one big problem. So we're just going to add those exponents together. And so we get g to the 12th. Okay, one last one for you to try. Pause the video for a minute, think about it, and then restart the video when you think you are ready. I'm going to assume you did that part. So once again, we've got the same base, so whatever we end up with is going to be an R. Started out with an R, so it's going to stay an R as a base. Now here, we can see that we have 7 R's, but we don't have a number here. Now, whenever you don't have an exponent written, then you know that that exponent is just going to be a 1. It just means that that's 1 R. So we have 7 R's and then 1 more R. So we're going to add those exponents together, which means we end up with R to the 8th.